Hey you guys, I hope everyone is ready for story time. I'm going to be reading from the Hands-On Bible. This is from Matthew chapter 13, the parable of the farmer scattering seed. Jesus left the house and sat beside the lake. A large crowd soon gathered around him, so he got into a boat. Then he sat there and taught as the people stood on the shore. He told many stories in the form of parables, such as this one. A farmer went out to plant some seeds. As he scattered them across his field, some seeds fell on a footpath, and the birds came and ate them. Other seeds fell on shallow soil with underlying rock. The seeds sprouted quickly because the soil was shallow, but the plants soon wilted under the hot sun, and since they didn't have deep roots, they died. Other seeds fell among thorns that grew up and choked out the tender plants. Still, other seeds fell on fertile soil, and they produced a crop that was 30, 60, and even 100 times as much had been planted. Anyone with ears to hear should listen and understand. His disciples came and asked him, "Why do you use parables when you talk to people?" He replied, "You are permitted to understand the secrets of the kingdom of heaven, but others are not. To those who listen to my teaching, more understanding will be given, and they will have an abundance of knowledge. But for those who are not listening, even what little understanding they will have will be taken away from them. That is why I use these parables. For they look, but they don't really see. They hear, but they don't really listen or understand." This fulfills the prophecy of Isaiah that says, "When you hear what I say, you will not understand. When you see what I do, you will not comprehend. For the hearts of these people are hardened, and their ears cannot hear, and they have closed their eyes so their eyes cannot see, and their ears cannot hear, and their hearts cannot understand, and they cannot turn to me and let me heal them. But blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear. I tell you the truth, many prophets and righteous people longed to see what you see, but they didn't see it, and they longed to hear what you hear, but they didn't hear it. Now listen to the explanation of this parable about the farmer planting seeds. The seeds that fell on the footpath represent those who hear the message about the kingdom, but they don't understand it. Then the evil one comes and snatches away the seeds that was planted in their hearts. The seed on the rocky soil represents those who hear the message and immediately receive it with joy, but since they don't have deep roots and they don't last long, they fall away as soon as they have problems or are persecuted for believing God's word. The seed that fell among the thorns represents those who hear God's word, but too quickly the message is crowded out by worries of this life and the lure of wealth, so no fruit is produced. The seed that fell on good soil represents those who truly hear and understand God's word and produce a harvest of 30, 60, or even 100 times as much as had been planted. The seeds that grew the most were the seeds that fell on the good soil, and Jesus wants you to be just like these seeds. Having good soil is just like having good eyes and ears for you to better listen and understand that Jesus is always there for you. The next story I'm going to be reading is from 5-Minute Goodnight Stories, and this story is called Thumbelina. There was once a woman who lived in a cottage with a beautiful garden. One day she found a golden ring among the flowers. "What a beautiful ring!" she exclaimed. She didn't know that it was really a magical crown lost by a fairy who once visited her garden. The woman put the ring on her finger. Suddenly a new tulip bloomed in the flower patch. Its pretty petals opened, and there sat a tiny girl, hardly as big as a thumb. She wore a buttercup for a dress and had long golden hair. "You are the most beautiful child I've ever seen. Would you like to live with me in my cottage?" asked the woman. "Oh, yes," replied the tiny girl. "Then I will call you Thumbelina," said the woman. They lived very happily together. One evening, a frog hopped through the garden. He heard Thumbelina singing by the pond. When the frog saw the tiny girl, he said, "I have never seen or heard such a beautiful creature. I must take her away to be my wife." The frog waited until Thumbelina's mother went inside. Then he jumped out from behind the reeds and captured Thumbelina. The frog carried her away to his lily pad on the river. "Rest here while I go and make plans for our wedding," said the frog. With that, he hopped away. "I don't want to be the wife of a frog," said Thumbelina. Thumbelina became so sad that she began to cry. A fish in the river heard her crying. "I'll help you," said the kind fish. "But how?" Thumbelina asked. The fish nibbled through the stem of her lily pad until it broke free. The lily pad floated down the river. "Thank you," said Thumbelina as she sailed far away. Soon the lily pad came to rest on a grassy bank of river. Thumbelina climbed up the bank and found herself on the edge of a meadow. "This will be a fine place for me to live," said Thumbelina. Soon the days began to grow cold. The meadow was covered in snow. "How will I keep warm in the winter?" cried Thumbelina. A field mouse who lived nearby heard Thumbelina. The field mouse was always happy to have visitors. "Come into my burrow," said the field mouse. "Come sit by my fire and have a warm cup of tea." Thumbelina and the field mouse soon became close friends. "How would you like to stay with me for the winter?" the field mouse asked. "I would like that very much," said Thumbelina. They filled their winter days with storytelling. Thumbelina loved the field mouse's stories of fairy princes and princesses. One day, Thumbelina peeked out of the burrow. She found a young swallow with a broken wing lying on the ground nearby. Thumbelina helped the swallow down into the cozy, warm burrow. "I surely would have frozen to death if you hadn't found me," chirped the swallow. All winter long, Thumbelina took care of the swallow. She fed him warm soup and helped his wing to heal. One morning, Thumbelina poked her head outside the burrow again. The snow was nearly melted, and tiny green shoots appeared all over the meadow. "Spring is coming," she shouted to her friends. The swallow decided it was time to leave. "You saved my life, Thumbelina," he said, "and now I would like to help you." Thumbelina said goodbye to her field mouse friend, then climbed into the swallow's back. She held onto his feathers as they flew off into the sky. Thumbelina held on tight as the swallow flew deep into the forest and landed gently on a thicket. Sunlight streamed down from between the trees. All around her, beautiful flowers of every color blossomed. "This must be a magical place," said Thumbelina, "like the places in the field mouse's stories." Suddenly, a beautiful lily opened up before her. Inside the lily was a tiny boy, no bigger than a thumb. He had a beautiful pair of silvery wings. "Who are you?" asked Thumbelina. "I am the Prince of Flowers," said the boy. "You are the most beautiful girl I have ever seen. Come and live with us here and be the princess of the flowers." "Thank you," said Thumbelina. "I would be happy to live here." With that, the meadow came alive. Tiny fairies stepped out of the flowers. "These are fit for a princess," said the fairies as they gave Thumbelina a pair of beautiful silvery wings. All of the animals of the forest also came to see the beautiful new princess. Thumbelina stayed with them in the magic thicket, where it was summer all the time and where it never grew cold. The end. That's all for tonight, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you have a favorite story that you like to read at bedtime, please let us know what it is and maybe we can read it and share it with everybody next week. I'll see you guys next week. Have a good night, you guys.